Hey everyone! We really take it for granted every day. You click a button online, or you walk down a store aisle, and boom, exactly what you want is right there waiting for you. But behind that incredibly simple transaction is a massive, completely invisible ecosystem. So welcome to today's Explainer, where we are going to demystify this hidden machinery, the distribution channels that actually move products all the way from the factory floor right to your front door.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today. Number 1, the misunderstood middleman. 2, types of intermediaries. 3, the world of wholesalers. 4, retailers reaching the consumer. And finally, number 5, the future of distribution.
Section 1, the misunderstood middleman. Whenever we talk about supply chains, the middleman is usually painted as the ultimate villain of the story, right? I mean, we constantly hear businesses bragging about cutting out the middleman to pass the savings on to you. But let's actually challenge that for a second. Do middlemen just delay goods and jack up prices? Well, if we look at the actual logistics, we kind of have to flip the script. They aren't just taking a cut for doing nothing. They're actually driving massive efficiencies that keep the entire economy running smoothly.
And this brilliantly illustrates a concept known as economy and effort. Let's run the raw math directly from our source material. Imagine a scenario where you have 5 manufacturers and 10 customers. If every single manufacturer tries to sell directly to every single customer, that requires 50 separate points of contact. That is a lot of friction. But insert just one middleman into the very center of that equation to centralize the distribution, you instantly create a net saving of 35 contacts. To put that into perspective, if we assume one contact costs 20 rupees, the direct distribution model costs 1,000 rupees. But with the middleman, that total cost drastically drops to just 300 rupees. So no, they aren't arbitrarily raising prices. By severely reducing the effort required, they fundamentally lower the total cost of distribution for everyone.
Section 2, types of intermediaries. So now that we've established middlemen are actually incredibly valuable to the exchange process, we need to sort these players into 2 major buckets to really understand how the machinery works. Those are functional middlemen and merchant middlemen. Now, the absolute defining line between these 2 groups is ownership. Merchant middlemen actually acquire the title to the goods. They buy them, they own them, and because of that, they take on all the heavy risks of trade, stuff like fire, theft, or spoilage. Functional middlemen, on the other hand, never actually own the products. They strictly negotiate and facilitate the deals, which means their risk is incredibly limited.
Let's do a quick fire round and define a few key functional middlemen, starting with the factor. A factor is interesting because they physically keep goods in their possession, even though they don't hold the actual title of ownership. With the principal owner's approval, a factor can sell those goods, sometimes even under their very own name, and then they just collect a fixed percentage commission for the work.
Now contrast the factor with a broker. A broker is perhaps the absolute purest form of a functional middleman. Their whole job is to bring the buyer and the seller together at the negotiating table. But they never take ownership, and unlike the factor, they never even take physical possession of the goods. They literally never touch the inventory. They work strictly on a commission for making the connection. And the second the terms are set, their job is entirely done.
Then we have this highly specialized role called a del credere agent. Basically, this is a commission agent who sells goods on credit. But here is the major twist. They personally assume the risk if the buyer totally fails to pay. They guarantee the payment to the owner. Now, you might be wondering, why would a manufacturer gladly pay them an extra del credere commission? Well, for absolute peace of mind. The agent bears the entire loss of bad debts, completely protecting the original owner. It's an insurance policy and a sales channel rolled into one.
Section 3, the world of wholesalers.
All right, stepping away from the folks who just facilitate deals, let's meet the heavyweights of the merchant middleman class, the wholesalers. To truly understand them, you have to understand their golden rule. Wholesalers buy and resell goods in relatively large quantities to retailers or industrial users, but they never ever sell to the ultimate consumer. The exact moment you sell a product to an end user for their own personal consumption, you officially stop being a wholesaler.
And look, wholesalers are far more than just giant storage sheds. You really want to think of a wholesaler as a financial shock absorber and a critical logistics hub all in one. By providing goods on credit to smaller retail shops, they're essentially bankrolling the retail industry. And by absorbing the risks of sudden price changes or warehouse spoilage, they act as a massive safety buffer. They even handle the grading and packaging, taking bulk cargo and sorting it into smaller, more manageable lots. All of this heavy lifting frees up the original manufacturer from the massive headache of distribution. It lets them concentrate entirely on just doing what they do best, making better products.
Section 4. Retailers, reaching the consumer.
Which brings us to the final and undoubtedly the most visible link in the distribution chain, retailers. They are basically the ultimate curators of our everyday lives. You see, their job isn't just to sell things, it's to anticipate exactly what we need before we even walk through the front door. They're out there, estimating local demand and procuring this diverse mix of goods from various different wholesalers, just so we don't have to drive around shopping at 50 different warehouses. And they also do a level of grading themselves. Our source text gives a really great everyday example here. Think of your local fruit vendor. They buy apples in massive bulk boxes, but then they sort those apples out by size and quality. They price them differently to perfectly match exactly what their specific local customers are willing to buy. It's highly tailored.
Now, what's really interesting is how fixed shop retailers have evolved into incredibly distinct scales just to serve our totally varied shopping habits. On one hand, you have small-scale retailers. Think of your cozy neighborhood general store or a little specialty boutique. They offer a pretty limited range of products, but with a massive level of local convenience. On the flip side, you have the large-scale retailers, the massive department stores, the sprawling supermarkets, and the big chain shops. These operations run on incredible variety and huge volume, employing highly skilled staff to maintain super efficient systems.
Within those large-scale operations, we find some truly fascinating business models. Take the franchise store, for example. This is an incredibly popular model where an independent local owner pays a fee to use a massive global brand's name. Think of a McDonald's or an Adidas store. It's a brilliant partnership, honestly. The local franchisee usually invests in the premises and the interior build-out, while the parent company, the franchisor, controls all the strict management guidelines and the inventory. It perfectly blends global branding with local investment.
Another major retail player is the discount house. These huge establishments bypass the traditional wholesaler altogether. They go straight to the source and buy directly from the manufacturers. They focus on selling durable goods, like household appliances or cameras, at cut-rate prices by operating on absolutely razor-thin margins. Their entire survival depends on selling a massive volume of goods. It's a volume game. They make up in sheer quantity what they naturally lose in individual item profit.
Section 5. The future of distribution.
But of course, the landscape of distribution never stands still, right? The absolute biggest evolution happening right now is the rise of integrated marketing systems. For decades, the conventional system featured all these independent middlemen acting purely in their own self-interest. They rarely cared about what happened further down the chain. But that era of the totally isolated middleman, it's fading fast. We are seeing a massive shift toward coordinated, unified distribution chains where participants at every different level actually work together to achieve incredible operating economies and a much bigger market impact.
Let's see how this builds, because this integration generally falls into two distinct strategies. First up, there's vertical integration. This is coordination up and down the chain. Think of a major manufacturer formally teaming up with a massive wholesaler or a giant retail chain to streamline absolutely everything, from the production line all the way to the final sale. Conversely, there's horizontal integration. This is an alignment of firms at the exact same level. The source text gives a perfect example with the Associated Cement Company over in India, where multiple different cement manufacturers joined forces to channel their products to the market jointly. Instead of competing on the distribution front, they pooled their resources to totally dominate it.
So this invisible machinery is rapidly becoming a unified powerhouse. But this leaves us with a pretty provocative thought to end on today. As these massive vertical and horizontal integrations take over, effectively turning the entire supply chain into just a few giant coordinated systems, take a look at the independent stores on your own street. How will the traditional, solitary middleman adapt to survive against that kind of massive coordination? It's an absolutely fascinating evolution, and it's one that is going to dictate exactly how we buy our goods in the decades to come. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep your eyes open the next time you walk down a store aisle, because now you know exactly what it took to get those products there.